everybody. We are here with another episode of Closed Captions. We got our trio on the couch looking amazing and lit and melanated as per usual. We are going to get everything started off by having everybody introduce themselves. We're going to start from my left, their right, and we're going to have everybody introduce themselves. So please, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Coco.
She's giggling.
Yeah.
What's your social media?
It is Queen double score reinvented.
Queen Reinvented. And next in the middle we have
Osiris Anthem. I'll be around. I'll be in Brooklyn. I'm a rapper. All that cool stuff.
All that cool stuff.
Some people know me as Nas on that shit, but I'm Osiris Anthem.
And what's your social media?
Maroon Waters on Instagram. Maroon Waters. And OSYRISANTHAM. That's the SoundCloud and everything else.
Dope. And last but definitely not least,
I'm Janelle Naomi, and I can be found everywhere at Janelle Naomi and also at JanelleNaomi.com.
Dope. So we're gonna jump right into the fray. This week something's gonna be a little bit different. Usually we have a heavier topic. We're gonna take it a little light this week, but it'll still be fun and still engaging and still in depth. So what we're talking about are stereotypes. Black men, black women, stereotypes that exist, and whether or not they are valid. And if so, we're going to validate them or invalidate them. We're just going to go down the line. So we're going to make this interesting. We're going to start with Coco.
She sounded mad seductive when she introduced herself.
It's just, I'm Coco.
It was like a sex hotline.
That's crazy because people really say that.
I'm girl 3.
Not girl 3.
Girl 3. All right, so we're going to alternate. And what I want y'all to do is we have a fourth guest. Y'all might see her soon, but we're going to chill out for now. All right, so
My eye in the building.
what we have is we have stereotypes that we hear all the time, and we're going to have you expand on them. You could tell us how you feel about the stereotype, whether you think it's valid, whether you think it's invalid. And then we can play off of it. If you want to add to the person's stereotype that I'm having them answer or talk about, then feel free. So, we're going to start with Osiris, actually. Sir Anthem. There is a stereotype that black women are more difficult to be with than other types of women in relationships. How do you feel about that stereotype? Is it valid? Is it invalid? Let us know your thoughts.
I mean, the problem with social scientists, as we all find ourselves being, is if you're going to do the scientific method, you need to have about an equal amount of each group, control variables, all that. A lot of people come to these conclusions without all of those factors, and so I think the grass may appear greener on the other side, but human beings are human beings, and I think men in any group will tell you that they don't understand women sometimes, and so I don't agree with that. I don't think that's true. I think black women are different from other groups of women. You know, I think black women are less likely to be forthcoming if they do like you than maybe other groups of women may be, and so maybe that may seem quote unquote difficult, but in general, no, I don't think black women are, more difficult to be with at all. And I'm not saying that because I'm flanked by two.
Flanked.
Janelle's face.
I was looking at
Like,
the eyes. I'm
go
like,
ahead.
let's look at the eyes. Let's see if
Go
ahead, B-roll.
I disagree. Totally disagree with that. I think a lot of times things that happen as we talked about in many episodes, black people unfortunately are mostly not at the highest socioeconomic levels, and the difficulties that come with dealing with people when you're not as financially well off may reflect in our brains as difficulties with that have to do with who that person is, when that may not necessarily be true. You know, and I think maybe that's the direction that people get these ideas from. And, you know, I think movies and such don't help, because somebody might write something in the script to be funny, but then when everybody loves that movie and that idea gets reinforced, it's like, oh yeah, this is the proof, this is fact. So if something gets popular on Twitter, if a joke is funny on Twitter and everybody sees it, then it gets reinforced when you see it in your environment. But all in all, I disagree with that stereotype.
Okay. Anybody want to add, take away?
I would like to add.
Okay.
I think it depends on what you define as difficult.
Okay.
I think that on a general sense, we know that we are God. So if I'm holding my God up to a standard, I may appear as difficult, but I expect excellence from you, right? So that may appear as difficult. Another race is not going to expect excellence from you because society is not expecting excellence from you. And so generally they're going to go with the wave of society is. And so I think we expect excellence, and we're going to put that pressure and that expectation, and we're going to make it known. These are the women that I'm around, though. You know, these are the women that I've been influenced by. These are the women that are in my circle. So I'm kind of moving or thinking or speaking based off of their expectations of the men that are in their lives. And if that is difficult for a man to step into that space and to say, yes, I'm going to hold to that, then that may be difficult. Like, that may be interpreted as difficult for some to stand on. But it does depend on your definition of difficult, because excellence is difficult. Like, being excellent at what you do is not easy. It's going to take some work. It's going to mean that you're going to fail sometimes. It's going to mean you're going to disappoint the person you're involved with and yourself sometimes. It's about what do you do with that? How do you rise from that? So I think that sometimes that accountability can be difficult to stand under and move accordingly. And you mentioned that it may seem like the grass is greener, but I recently heard a quote that the grass is always greener with whichever side you water on. So we looking at that side because we're putting our energy to that side. We're saying that they are better because we put our energy towards them, versus putting our energy toward our own selves and those who look like us and those who can edify us and hold us to this level of excellence that we should be rising to all the time. But we're not putting our energy here. So I think it's more that alignment of I'm gonna water this grass with where I am. I'm gonna pour my energy into this brother or sister that I'm with. You know what I mean? And make this the thing, because we know that that is what will be our legacy. That's how we will last.
Okay. Did you want to add to that, Coco?
I do.
Okay. We're married. Go on.
So I would like to say that I have a question. Joking. I would like to say we really just have to think about when they say that Black women are difficult, right? You gotta really think about where the Black woman fits in society. You know, the places that she is placed in society, the neighborhood that she is put in where society is concerned. So where you are placed basically says that this is who you are. And if you really look at it, Black people in general, and there are some low class, we have some middle class as well, that are basically still, you know, living in the projects, you know, living in, you know, income-based, whatever. But at the end of the day, we still have to fend for ourselves. So being a Black woman who has to fend for herself, it always seems like we're on the defense. Like we're always angry. We always have an attitude. when in all reality, we're really just trying to get things done. Um, so sometimes we may come off a little harsh, but me personally, would like to say sometimes we're really focused and sometimes we are made to be put against each other, which also kind of makes it seem like we're hard to deal with because we may be so frustrated from being put against each other and having to fight a daily battle on a daily basis. But I feel like a lot of people do not take that into consideration when they say that a black woman is difficult to deal with. Whether relationship, friendship, whatever type of ship, you know, you really kind of have to sit back and also take into consideration her self-esteem based on where she's at and what has society done to her self-esteem and what can we do to rebuild that self-esteem as a group. Also, like Osiris mentioned, sometimes men don't understand women and sometimes people don't understand black women, period, which is why we are the least protected, you know. So I want to say that that is not something of validity because you kind of have to really sit back and put yourself in a black woman's shoes, which is rather hard in order to kind of grasp the reason why we may come off as someone hard to deal with. And going back to what Janelle said, as far as, excellence, we have standards too. And even if we didn't have standards at one point, we get to a point where we have standards. So we have um, those black women that are difficult to deal with, and then those black women that are difficult to deal with but are easier to manipulate. And those are the people who I feel sometimes may have not found themselves yet, but they are on the journey to finding themselves. So I feel as if we took a little bit more time to think and to consider the fact that we are also on a journey, as no journey is easy. Maybe we wouldn't say that a black woman is difficult to deal with.
Okay. I want to touch on something that you kind of mentioned, because that was actually my next question, which I was going to bring to Janelle to start off. She talked about protection. So there's a stereotype that black men don't protect black women. Is there validity to that? Is that invalid? I want to hear how you feel about that specifically. And if you've noticed anything, or you don't have to tell any personal experiences, you could just give examples of what something might have happened that you know of to somebody else, or whatever the case may be, without naming any names or anything, that might give us an idea of what you may be referencing.
Yeah. I think that in this country in particular that we happen to reside in, we have to really look at the history of this country and the fact that for those who have been in this country or have a legacy in this country for 3, 4, 5 generations, there are things that occurred for our ancestors that caused them to move in a way that is different than what is natural for them. So that looks like if a black man comes and capes for his wife or partner, sister, what have you, he's killed, he has body parts cut off, he's whipped, he's sold, he's tortured in some way that is mentally, physically, spiritually damaging for him, and also requires for future generations to say, don't do that, to shun the natural reaction to protect. And so that legacy of, I want to protect you before you try and protect me, for black women to black men, sometimes comes and be quiet, don't say anything, don't rise up against this force of oppression that may be coming for us, listen when you're told to come, things like that go against the nature of black boys and black men in a general sense. And so from that perspective, I have had experiences where I had expectations of a man to step forward, that I felt I wasn't protected. When I first moved up to New York, I was catching a train to work early in the morning, and this man was like being very disrespectful and just made me feel very uncomfortable and made me feel like he was going to do something to me on the train. And it was other black men on the train. And I literally remember looking around and being like, he's not going to do anything because there are other black men on this train. But he kept coming towards me because they didn't give a fuck. And like that was a real feeling of like my reality being like, oh shit, like they're not going to help me. Like I'm in this by myself right now. And they're on the train and they're watching what's happening and the way things are playing out. And they see that I'm visibly uncomfortable. Or maybe they don't, but like nobody's going to help me. So like that was my reality check around like, no, nobody's gonna help you. But there have been other instances where people have come toward me, and so I can't say that like that stereotype reigns true. I know that there may be some validity in it, and I also think, you know, that there are reasons and rationales behind it. But I also have experienced other situations where I've been supported. I've had brothers come and step in and fill in the gap and make me feel like I'm protected and supported and safe in their presence. And those for me outweigh that one instance. That one definitely stands out as one that like verifies that. But there's so many more that I've experienced that have contradicted that. So
okay,
yeah.
I mean,
I'm kind of.
And I can understand that. Now, what you gave that's an actual valid example. I feel like
I have other.
I'm pretty sure you do. the way you just said that.
Yeah,
No, absolutely.
I do.
feel you.
I'm gonna just say one other thing.
Go ahead.
Like,
Go ahead.
we're gonna get deep.
I mean, whatever you got, you feel.
Like I've been raped by a black man. I've been robbed by black men. I've been dragged by black men. I've had experiences happen. So like there's trauma there. And I think there's a lot of healing that has to happen between the black man and black woman on a general level. I know for myself explicitly that I have a lot of trust things that happen that go through my mind, if not through my physical interactions when it comes to men. And so I'm not, you know, I'm dealing with my shit and I recognize that it is my shit and I'm allowing that to be what it is. But I really genuinely hope that I don't hold that as a space or expectation for every black man that I interact with, because I also recognize that as much as I'm dealing with my trauma, my brother is too. And yeah.
It's okay, so let's we're gonna slightly shift. We're gonna take what you just said and what you just said, and we're gonna I'm gonna plug you in a second. I like calling you Sir Anthem. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna ask Janelle specifically what would earn some of your trust back towards the black man, because I feel like in instances similar to what you just said, where there has been trust that has been lost, there's an understanding that there's a trust that's lost. There's an understanding of what happened, why the trust is gone, and that the trust needs to be earned. But I think there's not an understanding of what should be done in certain circumstances to earn said trust back. So what would you suggest? What would you like to see? What would you like to know is happening that would make you earn, or would make a black man earn more of your trust? Like, how would that be able to come about?
That is very nuanced. You know, situation by situation, but I'm gonna try and make it as general as possible. Something that, two things that come to mind for me: listening and observing, and then moving based off of observations. So listening, like if I say that this is the thing, like whatever the thing may be, like moving accordingly, and then observing. So like, oh, I noticed you ate this type of pickle. Yeah, I got you some pickles. Oh my goodness, you're paying attention. Like that means something to me. Like I I can go deeper into or talk through why that matters to me, but listening and observing are the things that immediately come to mind for every situation, despite the nuances of like,
This specific.
is this my brother? Is this my lover? Is this my, coworker? Things like that. Like how to move in those spaces. All that comes to mind is listening and observing. Because where your attention is what you care about. So for me, like, if you're giving me attention in those ways, it shows me that you care about me.
So let's tie that into your train example. If they were paying enough attention and cared enough, you feel like that would have been a certain level of trust earned because they would have seen
I feel that.
your feeling in that specific scenario and acted accordingly.
I mean, I'm telling this person to get the fuck away from me.
So literally, they had the cue.
Like, it's not a game. It's not like confusing. Like, I'm literally like, get the fuck away from me. So
okay, got it.
It's no confusion.
Okay.
They sat there and just watched things happen.
So now we're gonna pass the torch, Sir Anthem. And what I would like for you to do is, knowing what you've just heard, how do you feel about what you've just heard?
How do I feel? I think it's, conflicted. I mean, obviously, you hear about sexual assault, like that's not, like there's no cover for that, period. I feel like the black woman feeling unprotected by the black man, I think it comes from a place of maybe expectations being at a certain place that aren't being met by black men from black women's perspective. In the black man's defense, I think the black community is the only place where I've ever heard anybody say, oh, we need to protect the black woman, we need to love the, like, I don't hear white people say that about white women. I don't hear, I don't be in those spaces for me to hear it. I don't hear Asian, Latino men say that about their women, and I'm Caribbean, and so I've heard a lot of music growing up where it's like, it's Rastafarian guys that's talking about, the black woman is beautiful, black woman is this. So I'm used to being in spaces where that's like a thing, and so I think and then even every woman who has like a brother, cousin, uncle, father, if there's a situation, like, I feel like most women feel like they can call up that person that's in their family, and that person will, without a thought, will protect their brother, their sister, their mother, their aunt, their grandmother, their cousin. I feel like on that level, that protection is there. On another level, I think there is the human perspective where I don't know how people do fucked up things in general, no matter what race you're in. And so, like, people do fucked up things. Like you have R. Kelly and then you have Harvey Weinstein, And so, is there more of a burden or is there a higher expectation for R. Kelly to not be R. Kelly than there is for Harvey Weinstein to not be Harvey Weinstein? Obviously both situations are terrible, but just from that perspective, I'm just like, there's gonna be people that do fucked up things, and I don't think that person that does fucked up things should carry the mantle for the entire group of black men, and for the entire race, facts. But, it's difficult when you're dealing with trauma, and especially with women's trauma. I mean, anybody's trauma, period, because you can't tell somebody who's hurting that they're wrong about something, because your pain is coming from a real place. Your pain is like, that's real. Like, her situations are real. And so it's hard for me to have a blanket statement about specific situations that this individual dealt with. And Janelle could meet 20 or 100 or 1,000 or 1,000,000 other women who had these specific instances, and then that's all real, that's all their truth, you know? And then you can have all the other instances that she talked about where she did feel protected, and it could be 1,000 or 1,000,000 women who also corroborate that. So from the perspective of the fact that there are different experiences, I don't think that statement is valid, but I do see why people would feel that way.
Okay. Coco, would you like to add or take away anything from that since we went down the line? You don't have to if you don't want to. This is free will here.
Well, I am actually going to sit back on that one.
Okay. No problem. So, if we're thinking of protection, right? So let's think about the trust, right? Aspect of black woman, black man. That's kind of what we got into, right? If we were to look at this scope, because something that you both said was, and this is a conversation about us as black individuals, there are a couple of key points. So, number one, Janelle says she's on a train, right? A bunch of black people are seeing this happen, black men specifically. Nobody's doing anything, despite seeing that you're visibly irritated and upset with the situation, thus making you feel unprotected. Osiris says, I feel like there are certain scenarios and or situations that are similar across the board, sort of like they're bad people, bad situations. There's truth to both sides, right?
Yeah.
So my question then becomes, if it was not a group of black men witnessing this, do you feel the response would have been different? And anybody can jump in on this.
I feel like usually the black man is who's expected to be I feel like if there was other people, no, it wouldn't be a response, because the stereotype, if we're talking about stereotypes, is that if there's a black man present, I forgot what movie I think it was a Dave Chappelle joke where he was like on a plane, I could be wrong, and like something was going down, and then the white lady looked at him like he's gonna be the savior.
Oh yeah, there was like a hijacking, I think, and they were expecting him to be the one to stand up and stop. Yeah.
Like I think there's an expectation that the black man is strong and is gonna defend you and is gonna support you, and I think that's an expectation that a lot of people have.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I was in a similar situation where I saw a dude like hovering close to a woman on the train. I think it was like maybe a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. She didn't say anything, but the way he was hovering, it was like, I'm doing too much.
Too close.
And I was, in my mind, I was like, alright, I'm gonna give him like maybe 3 seconds, because I don't know what he's doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And if he don't move, like, I'm a step.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously you said that you vocalized that you were upset. Mm-hmm. Now, if she had vocalized, maybe I would have been more active in the moment. But I wonder if in that space she felt unprotected, even though myself and maybe somebody else on the train was thinking, alright, I'm gonna look out for her in case something happens. But then maybe in her head, the looking out didn't happen fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so, you know, not to say that she was wrong or that we were wrong, but you know, sometimes perception, especially when you're in a space of fear, you want people to come help you fast as fuck. Like, yo, where you at? Like, I need help. And you know, those situations are just always weird.
It's true.
Like when you deal with situations where somebody's looking like they're gonna harm you, but there is harm happening, and then the expectations for what people around should do, I think that's always such a super gray area. Mm-hmm. If you look at what happened to those store owners with that young boy that got
up in the Bronx,
there was a lot of conversation about what they should have done and how quickly they moved or what they, you know, I feel like those type situations are just always weird.
It's like it's similar to horror movie. We watch horror movies.
Don't
We always
go.
say what we
Don't
would have
do
done.
it.
I mean, yeah, exactly. Like,
I be
oh,
yelling.
how she tripped.
Girl,
She
get up,
like
let's
how
go.
she tripped. How did this happen? But in the dark, you might not have seen that route. I mean,
That's
granted,
right.
we wouldn't have tripped.
Yeah.
We wouldn't have tripped. That's reserved for
Wouldn't have been
others.
there.
But exactly. But okay, so I understand that and that sentiment, and
That's just my perspective, though.
but there's validity to that. That does make sense. Janelle, Coco, you want to add to that?
Well, I have had a situation pretty similar on the train, but the guy and I actually got real physical. And there was this guy sitting right across from me because this guy was like trying to like make a pass at me, and I was like, no, thank you. So then he decided to touch me on my shoulder, and I was like, like we're like,
What are you doing?
why are you touching me?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I already told you, leave me alone. So now he starts to like call me all types of names and things of that sort. And then he like nudged me. So I nudged him back because, and here we go. This is where that stereotype of like black women are always angry. But then you don't take into consideration these are things that
lead up
to us always
reacting,
having to be on defense. Because sometimes we feel like we only protect ourselves, like nobody's gonna protect us. And it's not that we're looking for anybody to protect us, but it's like if you see something going on in plain sight, like you're gonna sit there and watch, or let me guess, you're just gonna pull out your phone and just record it.
Okay, so let me add to that. Let me spin that, and I want you to keep answering.
Yeah.
If your role was switched and you were a white woman, do you feel it would have been different?
I can't put myself in those shoes.
No, just in general. If you saw that happen to a white woman, do you feel it would have been different? Do you feel somebody would have responded, or the person who initially asked or came at you in that way would have still responded in the way they did to a white woman?
I think in general, that situation depends. It depends on where you are, what stop you're at, okay, what neighborhood you're in. Because if it's like the Upper West Side, they're going to be like, oh my God. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if it's like the Lower East Side, they're going to be like, yo, she about to get got. You know what I mean? So I say it depends on the area. I would personally say because, the area states the mindset. But I feel often that people want to be superheroes, but they're afraid to be superheroes, if that makes sense. Because they're like, okay, so let's use a black man as an example, right? So there is a somebody who is having an altercation with a white woman, and then a black man steps in, and things start getting heated between this person and this black man, and somebody calls the cops. Automatically off the rip, it's gonna be the black man's fault. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, I kind of get where the women are coming from, and then I kind of get where the men are coming from. The black men and the black women. So I feel like with the example that he set when he was like, all right, I'm gonna give you 3 seconds, and if not, if something progresses, that's when I'm gonna step in. who's to say that everybody doesn't do this? Because I've done it sometimes. I've been on the train and I've seen, like when a train is really crowded and then a female is standing with her face towards the train door and a man comes and stands right here, like any closer and she's going to be pregnant. So it's like, in my head, I'm like, is he really invading her space right now? Because he knows he's invading her space. And sometimes I'm like, yo, this is crazy. Because if it was me, I'd, And then I had to put, once again, getting back to what I said before, putting myself in someone else's shoes. And I'm like, I would be hella uncomfortable if somebody was that close to me and there's this much space. So I took it upon myself to be like, miss, move a little bit to your right. And sometimes they're unaware because, now everybody's on their phones, everybody's heads are always down, nobody's looking forward, nobody's paying attention to their surroundings. So I told her, move to her right, and she's like, huh? I was like, you do not see how close this man is to you and all the space that is behind him? Move to your right. And that's me looking out for a black woman, you know what I mean? Or a woman in general, because at the end of the day, like, us as black women, I kind of get the lack of protection, because if it were a white woman, depending on a specific situation, someone would be quick to jump and be like, oh, let me save you. You know what I mean? Okay. But I feel like sometimes they're afraid to jump in for us because they feel like we're gonna be like, you know what I'm saying? So that's my statement.
Okay, just real quick, because I know you want to jump in. Kyrie had said, I think people tend to generally avoid conflict for all sorts of reasons. And he said, I wouldn't make that a black man not being able to protect thing or protect situation. But go ahead. I know you wanted to jump in.
I was going to say something along those lines. Because if I saw that situation and it was somebody I didn't know, I don't know if I would say something. I'd probably look like, oh, nah, son is dead wildin'. But I might not say anything. But I know if it was somebody that I personally knew, I'd absolutely say something. And I'd be ready for smoke. Like one time, like, bro, what are you doing? Fall back. Like, you feel me? Like, that's the type of energy, when I take my students out on trips. Like, that's the type of energy I have with my students. You know what I mean? I almost had a fight, Dave and Buster's, the other day. I mean, we was able to quell the situation. And I was happy for that because homeboy went from calling me nigga to calling me black man. And, when a brother start calling you black man, you on peace. You know what I mean? But I think it really depends on, I think expecting strangers to protect you is a luxury. Real talk. Regardless of who you are, black, white, that, and third. Which is why we celebrate strangers who protect strangers. Which is why they get like the key to the city instead of third. Because people tend to avoid conflict, like that person said. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say about this situation.
Okay, so we're winding down. So I'm gonna give one small little addition to this. But so we were talking about the whole protection aspect, and do you feel, or let me interject and just say something that I've noticed. Or I would ask the women, do you feel if a black man interjected to help in a situation, the resultant response would be worse for him than it would be for you if you tried to protect yourself?
That's a good question.
I only asked, I'll tell you why I asked that, and then maybe you can jump in. I think a lot of the times because when we usually are thinking about people protecting, we're thinking of a man jumping in to protect a woman. Specifically, we're talking about black men, so we're going to say black men. Do we think about the consequences for him jumping in? You kind of touched on it before when you were talking about the police and things like that, and it'll automatically be seen as the black man's fault. Like, I forgot what was the situation where the guy stopped the guy with the gun, black guy. The cops came, they shot him, killed him for stopping the attacker, and I think it was in like a bar or something. Can't remember the exact story. So, do we take into consideration what those consequences may be for the person who then interjects? Like how that person they're stopping might respond to them interjecting.
You make perfect sense with that question, though. You definitely do, because back to what I was saying before, but on the flip side, when I was like, sometimes people don't take into consideration how we feel. We're not taking into consideration the consequence, you know what I mean, or the backlash, the possible backlash. Just understanding, since we're talking about black people here, that especially a black man is going to be the first to get ambushed if there is something that does escalate, by even trying to take it upon himself to interject something that he had no business with in the first place, you know. So I think that does rise an exclamation point, because it really makes you think, and it makes you kind of, it opens your eyes to like a different view, as far as who's really protected here, you know. So, regardless of if us as women are going through something, not saying that we should just fend for ourselves. Like Osiris did mention, this is why they praise strangers who help strangers. But how often is it that a black man who helps somebody is often praised and still safe? You know? And that makes me think. And it's always good to have conversations that make you think, because although you may have your set thoughts, it's always good to hear other thoughts and have other type of curveball questions that kind of flip the sides. But yeah, like, nobody really takes into consideration the backlash that a black man might receive, because let's say, for instance, the cops are not there when the situation's happening. They're only running up and they're saying, oh, an angry black man, this is it, let's arrest them. You know what I'm saying? Like, they don't know what's going on, and there are many situations where a black man is definitely arrested, regardless of what a group of people may be telling somebody. Like, that's not the case, but they don't care because it's a black man. And I feel like, you know, going back to the first question, do we feel like black men protect black women, but are us women protecting the black man when situations like that arise? You know? So that's kind of where my head went.
Okay. I saw one of y'all want to jump in. Go ahead.
The question was, do we think about the consequences
that may happen for the person interjecting?
So similar to what Coco said, these cops are thirsty and they're bored. And that's a bad combination. If you ever seen the movie Jarhead, they went to the war and there was no war. And they came back and they needed to get off the training that they went through because they prepared for war. How do you release that energy? You
That's a
release
very
it on
good
the
example.
citizens, your loved ones, and yourself. And so we have a lot of cops, and they're highly militarized, and they're bored. That's a dangerous combination, and I do think about those things. I think about that. I mean, I live in a neighborhood where stop and frisk and stop your car and let me get on this bus and see what your tickets look like. Like all of that's happening right here where I live regularly.
That's a super fact.
Like, it's ridiculous. Like, cops be walking down the street talking about good morning, and I'm like, fuck you. Like, get out of here. Like, do not
That's
speak
also
to me.
a fact.
Like, do not talk to me. Like, I don't fuck with you. Like, for real. So, like, all of those things are in my head. I just think that that's going to happen regardless. I know that is a factor. I also think about if you already have some strikes against you or some past that may be impacting, and this one thing could set you over, and you don't want to risk that, because I haven't experienced life on the other side of that. I've read books, I've talked to people, I've had conversations about it, but no, that hasn't been my experience. So I don't know what that is like. So I can say I would like for that to not be a factor, but that I recognize that it is. And yeah, that's just another level of things that I feel like makes things for us, our relationship as Black man and Black woman, more complex.
Absolutely.
Another factor that is outside of us that is controlling the way that we move within our circles and elevates our levels of distrust for one another.
This is very true. And to add, because I'm going to let you finish this part off, also not just cops, but think about the person who now feels like you're confronting them and how they may feel with you confronting them to stop them doing whatever they are. Because people get offended really easy. And their response is unpredictable. So if they're unpredictably responding to you, how are they now going to respond to this new stimuli that's coming in? And aggressively or intimidating somebody who's letting them know, look, cut this out or there's going to be a problem. How do they then respond to that new aggressor?
Sometimes
do they fall back or do they
rise up?
Are they the cornered? Is it fight or flight? You know what I'm saying? So that's another factor to consider. But go ahead.
Now to that end, I was going to touch on something similar. But I think in general, Black men and Black women's feelings are well understood. Like I feel like there's so many spaces where a Black person is upset, and then it's just treated as if Bruce Banner just turned into the Hulk. When it's like there's mad like nuances to that emotion, and people just don't know how. And even us, like we won't even like. I'm sure you've been in situations where you was angry or you was about to fight, and then your friends was but not even that you was about to fight, but your friends was treating you like you was about to like blow up, and they on some grab you, chill. I'm like, yo, I'm good. Like you're not even like your friends not even handling you. Like your Black friends, people that know you and care about you, not even handling you how you need to be handled in that situation because they're not understanding the nuances of your emotion. So it's like when it's coming from outside, it's even worse. You know what I mean? When it's coming from like cops or when it's coming from any type of authority figures, it's even worse. You know what I mean? Where like even when you like you deal with kids too. I feel like sometimes a child of color, a Black kid, will have an emotional reaction to something, and then people would just treat like just their reaction as the end all be all, and they'll be punished for their reaction. But it's like, all right, can we validate their feeling first? You know what I mean? Like and I feel like that's a form of protection. Where I remember that girl, there was some fight in McDonald's. Some girl had beat up that girl, and they put on the front paper savage. And it's like really savage? Like really? Like Shorty could, you don't know what's going on in Shorty's brain or what's happening at the time, what was happening in her life. You don't know what she's good at, what she's not good at, all the things that make her a human being, but she just gets labeled a savage for fighting. Meanwhile, it's like fighting that's regular, that's a normal thing, but we're not treating it like she's a human being. Like I feel like Black emotions are just not handled well at all by society. And then one more thing I was going to touch on too, I feel like A lot of the conflict about who's protected and who's not and how we deal with it is greatly affected by socioeconomic status. Because sometimes black stereotypes affect your actual way of living, and then sometimes black stereotypes are just an aesthetic in your life, even though you're black. Like, you're good, and then maybe in certain spaces, the idea may give you a little bit of trouble, but not really. Like, all right, maybe you just go into certain stores and somebody's following you around, but then you might live a lifestyle where every time you walk down the block, the police is stopping you, and because you don't know how to handle your situation because you wasn't taught right, you getting locked up on a regular basis for bullshit. And so it's like both versions of that black person are experiencing lack of protection, but one person is dealing with it much more crazy than the other person based on where they live in and how they live in, you know?
Very true.
Yeah.
Very true. So we're gonna come close to a wrap up. I'm gonna ask you one question. I want you to answer yes or no. We're not even gonna go into it.
Okay.
All right, and it kind of ties into something you just said, and then we're gonna get hit with the remix. So, from my left, your right. Who is more emotional, men or women?
It's a yes or no.
Yeah, it's not a yes or no. You're absolutely right. It's not a yes or no. You're absolutely right.
Yes.
Man or woman? Yes. Like, who's more emotional? Yes. So who's more emotional, a man or a woman? We can start with Coco. And no, there's no in-depth, just man or woman. That's it. I don't even want there to be an explanation.
So inclined. So inclined.
Nope. No
I
explanation.
even like 5 seconds.
Nope.
I can make this 5 seconds.
Nope. I don't believe you.
I can.
Yeah.
I can make this 5 seconds.
Okay, 5 seconds. Go ahead.
Okay.
Kick open that door.
Wait, you ready? You ready? As soon as you start talking, these fingers are gonna start balling into a fist.
ready?
Go ahead.
I think both, for the simple fact that men are made to feel like they have to be tough, so they feel like they can't show their emotions, so they have to, I'm trying. No, but I feel like that. I feel like we're equally emotional, but I feel like they say that men are more emotional because they seem less emotional for the simple fact that they have to be made to be the type that have to be the tough ones.
Okay.
It was like 10 seconds, but
10 and a half, but okay. Sir Anthem.
These niggas be. I say that specifically because an emotional woman might break your heart. An emotional nigga will kill you. You know what I mean?
that's a fact.
We ain't going all at the same time. That's not gonna happen. Okay.
You know what? I can keep mine to one word, men, based off of exactly what he said.
And
I
Kyrie
concur now.
in the comments said women are car crashes. Men are plane crashes.
Woo!
So we're gonna take that. We're gonna wrap up our conversation portion, and we're gonna shift into the remix portion. That was good. I appreciate that. We have how much time we have left? We have like 6 minutes. So this question is simple, easy. You just give a quick answer. All right. How many of y'all have seen the Avengers at all? Any of the Avengers? You don't have to see the most recent one. Did you see the one prior to this one? Infinity War with Thanos.
I saw Black Panther.
Glove. Okay.
Is that?
So they have these stones that have certain powers.
Okay.
Crystals?
They're well.
I have crystals too.
So
My crystals have power too.
with the glove, when Thanos collects all of these stones, he has the power to basically control, wipe out, and do anything. Right? So essentially, if each one of you had one finger snap with the glove to do whatever you wanted, what would you choose to do with your one finger snap?
Control people's minds.
Oh.
And for
Shit.
and for what purpose?
You said
For what purpose? We can't just.
Like, you protect
Squad up.
You
Always
protect
gotta
it.
squad. Always got a squad.
Let's go.
Okay, so your finger snap is to control minds. Something tells me that's not gonna end well. But we're gonna move. We're gonna jump over. Okay, Sir Anthem.
I'm gonna finger snap myself into like a cool $6 billion, bro.
Yeah, so you finger snapping wealth into your life.
Bro, so I can start, you know what I mean? Feed the people around me, feed the community. You know what I mean? Get closed captions, you know, nice
He sounds like I'm your no more, but I'll let you eat. Oh, okay. Janelle.
I would snap my fingers and make history be written correctly.
Ooh.
Snap my fingers for that one.
I like that.
Okay.
I like that.
I like that. So, Kyrie said, infinite resources is the one thing people fight for throughout history. So that would be his fingers.
Infinite resources. We just don't have control over it.
But if we can control the minds of the people,
Oh God.
then we can.
Oh God.
This is why the mind is important.
Mm-hmm.
If you can control the mind, you can control everything.
That's X knows.
Bam.
Yep.
That's what I've always said. If I could be one person, I would be Professor.
We got to keep you from cerebral, though. We don't need you tapping into everybody. Like, just be like
Yeah, when I was a kid, I used to say Wolverine, but as an adult, definitely.
Yeah, man.
Rogue?
Yeah.
Oh, so you want to suck people's powers away.
Alright, let me get that. Oh, you got that?
Oh,
That's
in
good.
case some of y'all comic heads don't know, you know how Rogue got her powers, right?
No, I don't. Tell me.
From Captain Marvel.
Bingo!
She held on to her too long.
Yep.
Oh.
Drew out some powers that she shouldn't have had, but that's why she got so ox and started knocking people out. Anyway, okay, so wow, we finished in a decent time. So let's see, how many minutes we got left? Like 2. So we're gonna close out. We're gonna do our outros. We're gonna start again, as we always do, from my left, your right. Say your name, your social media, and then peace out to the audience, and that's what we're gonna do.
So I'm Coco. My handle is Queen _reinvented, and we appreciate you guys.
Hey.
Osiris Anthem, you can follow me on IG at Maroon Waters, straight like that, and Osiris Anthem on everything else.
Peace.
My name is Janelle Naomi. You can find me everywhere at Janelle Naomi or at JanelleNaomi.com.
And our Kari said we need to watch Coco. You right. And our wonderful hidden camera person is
Nay Marie, Taji Mag, all social media at Taji Magazine.
And your hostess with the mostest, not Beetlejuice, is the One Will Focus. The One Will Focus, all spelled out, no numbers, no funny stuff on all social media, all the same. Thank y'all again for joining us.
You can follow us on
Oh yeah, that's right. Look, I'm about to not plug. Y'all can follow the series on
Instagram at CC
The
the
Series.
series on all platforms, including Patreon.
Yeah.
Maybe if you guys went on Patreon, we don't need Osiris to get $6 million to get a studio.
billion.
Oh, he said billion?
Yeah, billion.
I like billion.
All right, y'all. We thank y'all for joining us again. Stay tuned. We'll be back next month with another episode. So we love y'all. Stay black. Stay beautiful.
Hold on.
Pete.